Hey, and welcome back to this episode of Work This Way. Today we are recording in FOUNDRY Wandsworth, SW18 London. We're joined by Stuart McFadden. Stuart is the founder of Refundee, a brilliant FOUNDRY Walthamstow member, a resident of Walthamstow, but spends quite a bit of time in Wandsworth nowadays. So welcome, Stu. Thanks for coming over to Wandsworth.
Yeah, no problem. It's a nice office.
So do you prefer Wandsworth to Walthamstow? What's the attraction?
I've got young kids, so I don't get out very much. So I actually really enjoy just coming into somewhere more central or
it's
going
a little
somewhere
mini
different.
commute, right? It's what, 45 minutes?
Yeah, it's about 45 minutes, and different cafes for lunch, all that kind of stuff.
That's
so
great.
It doesn't take much to make me happy.
And you've got mates over here as well?
Actually, my co-founder lives around the corner from this one.
Oh, okay.
So,
perfect.
so it works perfectly because I'm a member of the Walthamstow one and he's a member of the Wandsworth one.
Oh, I hadn't realised.
So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's a great story.
But it means we're working from different offices as well, which isn't ideal.
Yeah,
so we try and mix.
Does he come up to Walthamstow?
Yeah, we take it in turns. Yeah.
Stu, it's brilliant to have you in the chair in Wandsworth. Tell us a bit about your story and how that led to co-founding Refundee.
Yeah, I was one of these people where I never knew what I wanted to do. So when I was at university, I did a law degree, and I did a little bit of experience at law firms, decided this is definitely not for me. It was kind of very formal, which I'm not really.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of fell into financial services because when I finished university, it was during the financial crisis. So it was around I finished in 2009, so it wasn't long after the financial crisis. So I ended up actually working at a charity, giving debt advice.
Right.
Up near Sheffield. That was actually
is that where you're from?
I'm from Loughborough. It was like North Nottinghamshire where I worked, so it was kind of near my house. And I was there for about a year, and I really enjoyed the helping people side of things. I didn't enjoy the money working in a charity, which is why I left in the end, and also kind of wanted to move to London, which is when I can move down to London. Ended up working at some very boring sounding places like the Financial Ombudsman Service, Financial Conduct Authority, before moving to Monzo, which was...
You started at Monzo?
Yes.
What year was this?
2016.
Okay, so that was the cusp of Monzo. That was...
Yeah, I think Monzo started in 2015, and when I joined it didn't even have a license.
How big was the business then at that point?
It was a tiny little office with, I think I was the employee number 40.
Wow, what a moment in time. What a journey that must have been.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting myself in for.
To go from financial ombudsman to Monzo. So they were still getting the banking license at this point?
Yeah, they hadn't got the banking license. They were giving out cards in the office. I've gone from pretty stuffy old school places with old systems, old ways of doing things. If I'm honest, when I was at the Financial Conduct Authority, and I found myself in compliance. Of all things, which is, that's fine. Some people like it.
Stood you well now, of course.
Yeah. It was great. Actually, the Financial Conduct Authority was a great place to work, but wasn't for me in terms of like the work. And I did have this thing where I was like, I'm going to apply for a job at Monzo. I'll see how that goes. If I don't get it, I'm just going to move to China and teach English or something like that. I was like, I can't keep doing this. Luckily, I got the job at Monzo, and it was completely different to anything I'd experienced before. In terms of the working culture, and just opened my eyes to a whole different world.
Let's talk a little bit more about Monzo, because I'm sure the listeners will be intrigued by what it was like in a pre banking license era for Monzo to go through that rapid growth period that they went through, hyperscaling. I would have thought. What was it like?
It wasn't boring, that's for sure, which was probably the best thing about it, that it just wasn't boring. It went through different stages, to be honest. When I first joined, everything was great. The company was growing. It was really exciting. There was a whole buzz about it. People were I've never worked in it before where everybody was kind of so engaged with what they do and working so hard. And just strange things. Like I'd been in old school places, even just dogs in the office and not wearing a suit. And just being able to work remotely from a cafe or whatever, all this kind of freedom.
London-based, and you must have moved offices quite quickly. You must have outgrown where they were.
Yeah, it was a pretty small, not very nice office.
Where they ended up,
Yeah, and then, it grew and grew. It got a lot more professional as it went. There was ups and downs. There was a period that was really challenging when it was losing a lot of money, kind of under pressure. Wasn't quite so nice a place to work then, but solid place to work at then, but came through that on the other side. And yeah, I went through that whole journey of, exciting startup to really like struggling, and that you could see the pressure on the senior staff in particular. Actually, no, everybody really. And it kind of changed.
Down.
Yeah. But still the whole way through it, like I'd never worked anywhere before where people were just so ambitious and engaged and just wanted to sort out all the problems.
Common goal.
Yeah. And Tom Blomfield, I'd say, was like everywhere I've worked he's very charismatic. I wish we could emulate that at Refundee. He would just say, this is, he could just turn the whole company around by just saying, this is what we're doing now. This is what we're focusing on. And everyone would just move. Yeah. It was, I've never seen anything like it or anything.
Inspiring time.
Yeah.
Obviously stood you in good stead again. Your time in the Ombudsman and the FCA, to a completely different culture, startup culture in Monzo. And here you find yourself with a relatively young business still, Refundee. You must look back and think, wow, you gained so much experience through that period in your life in a very short period of time, right? Because that business exploded, Monzo, didn't it? I mean, it was a couple of years. It was incredible growth. Do you look back fondly on that time, that experience?
Yeah. I think I'll probably look fondly on most of my experiences. And to be honest, everything I've done weirdly fed into everything I need to know for Refundee. So Refundee, for example, we had to get an FCA license. I knew how to get an FCA license because I'd helped at Monzo, and also I worked at the FCA, so I knew how it worked. And we take cases to the Financial Ombudsman Service, and I used to work at the Financial Ombudsman Service.
So you know how that works.
And and so all the stuff I've done is kind of luckily given me the knowledge that was needed to set up Refundee properly, and in particular Monzo stuff. I was used to really old systems, but Monzo, is all this really amazing off-the-shelf products that you can use that are just so much more efficient, and bringing that into Refundee was just a bit of a no-brainer.
I guess you saw a massive shift in the way that the sector post 2008, the time that you entered the sector in 2009 when you were working for the charity. You must have saw a massive shift in protection and where you are today in what fraud, essentially, fraud prevention and investigation.
Yeah. What is really strange is, all of that, loads of stuff was brought in, which is great. I feel like we're actually reaching a time now where some of it's been taken away, weirdly. Right. There's a lot of, I'm sure you've heard about the car finance scandal. The government tried to intervene on that. A lot of the stuff around fraud is kind of being shoehorned into that as well, where there's actually proposals to change some of the regulations or the way the Ombudsman Service operates to actually make it a bit more difficult for scam victims to get their money back, which is unfortunate.
Not good news. Yeah.
No, it's not good news for Refundee. It's not good news for scam victims. But
that's where you come in.
Yeah,
as an industry sector.
Yeah, we just have to adapt, and we always find a way. It's nothing that's like too serious, but it's just a shame that after lots and more consumer protection coming in, there is some noise around slightly making it, this is scam victims at the end of the day. Making it harder for them to get their money back is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for the economy. Once people lose their money to a scam, they're not going to invest in something else. So, it's not great.
Stu, what an amazing story with Monzo. What came after Monzo? And I suppose the thing we're all interested in here is, what was the why for Refundee?
So after Monzo, I actually felt like I needed a bit of a break from that kind of environment. So I actually worked at NatWest for a little bit.
You say you were burnt out when you left Monzo?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
How long were you there for?
Almost 4 years.
Okay, so that's a big stint. Yeah.
Yeah. So I left just before COVID, then COVID happened. I was at NatWest, working from home, and then I spent a little bit of time at a startup, but by that point, Refundee was, a good idea. It was an idea that looks like an obvious one.
And the idea was born from a problem that you'd seen through years of working at the FCA, the Omnibus.
Well,
I can't say it.
Yeah.
The
Ombudsman. Yeah. I mean, I can't. I avoid saying it. Yeah.
And obviously Monzo, where you've got your customer facing, and then to go into mainstream bank, where you're exposed to a massive database, I guess at that point, massive customer base.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I never worked in the fraud areas,
Right.
but at Monzo, I led the vulnerable customer team.
Vulnerable customer
Yeah,
team.
yeah. So there
Right.
was obviously a lot of crossover. You would
Yeah.
kind of see stuff. I'm not saying Monzo had a big problem at that
Mm.
point, but this whole thing didn't really exist in the sense that. Well, I suppose what happened is it wasn't just me. That one of my co-founders, he actually worked in a bank in the fraud department, and Will worked at a bank as well. He was one of
Right.
the co-founders who works at the Foundry as well.
Yeah.
So we all kind of knew, and we started talking about this thing we were seeing, which was firstly, all banks were doing a terrible job of stopping people from being defrauded. So you get, someone in their 60s suddenly starts sending hundreds of thousands of pounds to cryptocurrency, and the bank doesn't even ask a single question.
Yeah.
Was a
Something's not
common
right here.
case we used to see. And then also there's rules in place at the time, like voluntary rules that have now been replaced by regulation, where banks were refusing to reimburse people when it was obvious they should have. And people just weren't doing anything about it. I had no idea what their rights were. So we were like, we could do this for people, charge a small fee for it. So we started testing the idea, and it was pretty budget at first. We were just doing Google ads. We got blocked from Google because none of us know anything about how to use it.
Yeah.
So we ended up on Bing, advertising on Bing. And then we modeled the whole thing on, our average case size being £4,000. We'd taken a fee of 15% for anything we got back. And the cases coming through were absolutely massive. Our average case size now is £50,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was so much bigger than what we thought it would be.
Right.
And we had, the most we've ever got someone back was 1.8 million. We don't charge 15% on that,
I'm
by the
sure.
way. It's capped.
There's a taper.
Yeah, there is a
Yeah.
cap.
Yeah.
Of £10,000. So
Yeah.
pretty small fee for
Yeah.
that kind of money.
So you and your co-founders could see there was
Yeah.
could see the problem, and you thought you could go out on your own and fix it.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So you did.
Mhm.
And you left good jobs in mainstream banking
Mhm.
to start your own business
Mm.
and take on mainstream banks.
Yeah.
On behalf of people that have been defrauded.
Yeah. And the beauty of the business was it's, you have to be in a relatively privileged position to do what we did, because it takes on average about 9 months for a case to settle. So it'll be 9 months before we get
Any
revenue.
fees. Yeah.
Yeah. So we obviously had to work without any income for a while. So we were all old enough and lucky enough to be able to do that. We all only put in £5,000 each. It took no funding or anything like that. And we just ran it with just us three.
You bootstrapped it.
Yeah, we bootstrapped it because it made sense at the time to bootstrap it, because we were figuring it out to see whether it was actually going to work.
But for the listeners, you and your co-founders worked in mainstream banking. You left really good jobs with good pensions, probably growth opportunity within the bank, these are big banks, to start your own business. You bootstrap your own business, and you, on behalf of people that have been defrauded, then set up against the big banks.
Yes.
Big banks must have it in for you now, because you're representing people that rightly are making claims against the big banks.
Yeah. I mean, they were getting away with this for a long time, where they just weren't doing anything. They were fobbing people off, and scam victims are pretty easy to fob off, to be honest, because it's pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
What people go through, and even people who don't even use representation, sometimes they just want to forget about it, write it all off, and just never
almost
think about it
embarrassed
again.
by it. I can't believe I got
exactly
like that.
So there's a combination of people having no idea they have any rights, and also being pretty vulnerable at that point in time. And banks were just completely fobbing people off, misleading them about their rights, all that kind of stuff. And we were the first to do this. There are other companies that do it as well now. But it started off this whole thing. It turned out to be massive. We didn't know how big it was at the time, because the fraud figures that are out there are massively understated.
Yeah, because people aren't reporting it. They're not coming forward they're embarrassed. They've
and also
up,
the banks just underreport it. It's the bank's figures that everyone relies on, but they do a lot of telling people that scams aren't scams and various other things, and not including certain things. So
what year was this, Stu, when you guys set Refundee up?
We got a license to operate in June 2021.
Right. So right in the middle of the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we didn't really get going until a little bit after that.
Yeah.
And then, we just did online ads, took on a few cases. And then as soon as they started winning, we were like, okay, this is a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, one of the regrets possibly is that we didn't scale more sooner. We were very risk averse.
Take
I think.
market share.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's easy to say that in hindsight, but then there are things that you kind of when you're
course.
scaling control, like if, for example, you can lose a case in our field if you miss a deadline by a day. Like if you don't get back to the ombudsman service on a certain day, that customer will never have a chance to ever get their money back. And you can actually do that if you do that wrong. And we've never done that. Whereas if you scale too quickly, you start taking risks with other people's money in that way. So, it's easy to look back and say we should have scaled quicker, but the quality of the staff wouldn't be as good because when you suddenly get loads of people and all that kind of stuff, and it's really important people know what they're talking about. Because again, people can lose their cases if they're dealing with people that aren't properly trained. So it's a balance. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Scaling is a challenge, isn't it? To do it's sort of the extreme of blitz scaling or controls.
Yeah. We were definitely on the control
side.
Yeah.
As you said, you bootstrapped, right?
Yeah.
But as I said, very admirable thing to do and ballsy thing to do to leave good jobs, mainstream banking, and then go turn on your former employers. You must have seen some incredible changes, step changes, expedited changes in how complex fraud has become now. Only a couple of months ago, the company I won't say the name, the company that supplies Foundry's business cards to all of our employees, myself included. I got a phone call from this company to say that there had been a fraudulent activity on my card. I didn't really want to talk to them because I'm very nervous. I'm very aware of this. And the guy talked me around, so I went with it. I got a proper text message. I got a proper email, and somebody took £2,000 off of my company card in the Apple store on the Strand in London. And it was a fraud. I got frauded, properly tucked up, like a kipper. And I was amazed. I'm pretty sure we got our money back and everything else. But it was complex because I was frauded because I got a proper text. I got an official text in the same text message thread that I get my messages from this company from to say that I'd spent £3 in WH Smith or whatever.
Yeah, they're unbelievably convincing. This is what annoys me when we sometimes do articles in the papers and we publish our own posts on Facebook, and the comments would be like, idiots deserve it, why are the banks liable, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, these scams are very, very convincing. They're really professional. That one you're talking about, safe account scam in particular, there was someone that was arrested recently because they'd managed to get all the banks, even the bank's call hold music and things like that. So they were calling people with the real script of the bank, real hold music, again, calling from the actual number that looks like it's from the bank, spoofing it, and sending a text message from the same bank in the thread with all your others. Like, of course, people fall for it. They're all like that though. Like, it's very rare. The typical thing you will see in the papers is like someone thought they had a relationship with Keanu Reeves or something like that. But that's
you do see a lot of that.
Yeah. But that is like a minority of cases. That does happen.
Yeah.
It does happen, but the majority are.
But then you see celebrities getting frauded. I saw some in the paper this week about, I don't know, some massive A-lister, thought they were, it was ridiculous. And you think, what's a Wally? But in reality, I was done only a couple of months ago, on a business card transaction.
Yeah, there's a false perception that scams are not very convincing or people are foolish to fall for them. Not everybody is a scam where they think they're in a relationship with Keanu Reeves or something like that. We get most of the stuff we deal with is really convincing. So an example of one we dealt with, we're currently dealing with, it was like we were actually on Panorama the other day talking about it, but it was called Vashi. They approached high net worth investors who, they specifically targeted people that have exited businesses or people who are well known, things like that, with the opportunity to invest in this, essentially a bespoke jewelry maker. They had a store in Covent Garden. They had another store somewhere else in London, so you could physically go into the store. They had staff. They actually, they were able to sell stuff to customers.
All the front.
Yeah, they had the front. And there was, a small amount of sales. And the idea was you would invest, you would get shares in the company if you wanted, or you would just get a return. And that was to grow the company in New York and other places overseas, to buy stock. And investors were convinced, a number of things. Obviously, this guy was really charismatic, which is always the case. And he appeared as one of in the Forbes magazine as one of the entrepreneurs to watch out for. He was on This Morning, I think it was, giving Holly Willoughby a necklace to wear. And yeah, the people invested on the strength of the accounts that were online, the published accounts that had supposedly been audited. And which, that's something we wouldn't usually see. So investors were given a pitch that matched what was online on Companies House. The stock list, they said they had about £200 million worth of diamonds as security that were in stock. All of it was fake. They had about 5% of that. And the turnover they were saying was about 200 million a year, I think it was. Actually, it was about 5 million a year. There's hardly any sales. They were getting staff to go into the store when investors were going in and posing as customers to make it seem busier than it was. And the guys just disappeared, went to Dubai, as a lot of scammers do. Really? They end up in Dubai.
For context, the type of stuff that Refundee does, the type of work that Refundee does, could be, I'm talking out loud, could be me getting done for £2,000 in the Apple store and having a battle with Pleo, because Pleo aren't playing ball. So I appoint you then to say, if we Refundee, would you come in and sort this out for me, please? Because I'm getting nowhere. And you might be too small for it, I don't know. And then the other end of the CR, you've got this £200 million flipping fraud going on with this guy that's done one to Dubai.
Yeah.
So it's what work do you like to do?
I like the complex fraud, to be honest. We kind of have two sides to the business. We have the majority of what we do is they kind of fit in with the general trends, so romance scams, invoice scams, but the majority are actually crypto investment scams, because
and this is what
really
you call
convincing.
Complex.
No, sorry, these are the straightforward ones, general case load. So cryptocurrency
scan is straightforward.
Well, compared to the other ones, but
Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
And I mean, even on the complex, some of them are not that complex. We prefer, that's just the term we use. But the cryptocurrency ones are the most common at the moment because they're so convincing. And they're all over Facebook. You can see them. The ones that use Martin Lewis's face and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
They're really convincing. And then we have the other side, which is a smaller part of the business. But what I enjoy doing is investors essentially being told they've lost money to something that is just a failed investment and not a scam. So, for example, Vashi, this big, massive diamond fraud, all the banks have refused to reimburse people because the reimbursement rules only apply to people that have lost money to a scam.
Okay.
And they're telling people, sorry, this is
a poor investment.
This is just a bad investment. And it's just so obviously not.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work to try and, you have to, for example, in that case, we employed a diamond expert to go through the stock lists.
Really?
And just to point out that they're completely fabricated and that's not how a real stock
that's
list.
A scam. If there was 200 million quid worth of real diamonds and the guy sold them too cheap, that's a bad investment. There wasn't 200 million quid worth of real diamonds.
People were investing on the strength of these stock lists and the sales figures that they were given, and they were given supposed evidence that they were real, and it was all just fabricated. It's just a scam.
Yeah, I can see why this side of the business really interests you.
Yeah, it is hard work, but it's, that case is £200 million of investor losses. There's niches, you can only help a certain number of people, but that, we can end up getting millions of pounds back for people under that case. And they should get it back, in my opinion, because it's just it's so obvious. The BBC are so cautious, and they have called it a scam multiple times on that show. Like, they know it's a scam. They wouldn't be calling it a scam. Their legal team would not let them unless they had definitive evidence that it's a scam.
And this is Panorama, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are on Panorama Watchdog.
Mm-hmm.
You've been, I think I've seen you on Watchdog. I think we did an airing one.
Yeah.
Factory.
Rip Off Britain.
Rip Off Britain, right. Yeah. Which is your favourite show to go on? And do you get anything from it? I mean, do you get leads from going on Panorama?
We do Panorama. Yeah, Panorama. A lot of people watch Panorama, and it does. It's just obviously when people have been scammed, it's hard for them to know who to trust. So just being on the BBC in itself is a good trust measure. Panorama is really great in terms of the exposure we get. It's always really relevant. They're really good shows. Rip Off Britain has less viewers, but nevertheless, it's still great to get on there.
And did different sector, different elements of different style of fraud, I would imagine, than Fashy, perhaps the diamond fraud. But
we quite often give them information as well because they often cover frauds where we don't necessarily feature on the show. But for us, we want people to kind of be aware they've got rights, even if they don't use us.
And this is what this is about, right? This is about consumer rights, people not knowing their consumer rights, not feeling that they can actually stand up and go, no, I'm not being treated very fair here. And your business can step in and represent that.
And we give a lot of free information as well. So we try to operate ethically. So we charge much lower fees than anyone else for this. And we give out a lot of free information. So people are free to use us, or they're free to try and do it themselves, depending on the case. That's sometimes a good idea, sometimes not. And that's really good for us, because people too often, what's really frustrating for me is I have Reddit, and every now and again on the personal finance thing, someone will post, I've lost money to this scam, or my granddad lost money to this scam, or something like that. And particularly when it's cryptocurrency related, and the advice people give them on these threads are just write it off. It's crypto, and you've lost it. There's nothing you can do. And that's not true.
It's not a bad investment. It's a scam.
When it's literally a scam, people have lost their money, and the advice people are giving is just give up. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
Yeah, these guys are driving around in Lamborghinis all over Instagram and social media. It makes me feel sick.
Well, on this, it's more like when I go online, I see someone looking for help to say, my granddad's, lost £50,000 to a cryptocurrency investment scam. What can you do? And the top advice is write it off. There's nothing you can do. And it's not true. There are things you can do. So I will comment being like, it's actually not true. Banks have an obligation to look at what's going on his account. If it was unusual for your granddad to be sending £50,000 to cryptocurrency, which I imagine it probably was, then they should have intervened. And then there becomes a debate about how good that intervention was, whether they should have stopped him, whether there's some liability for him or not. But that's how it works. That's what we're essentially doing. We're kind of arguing that the bank account the money's gone from has a duty of care for that person. And if we can win that, the person gets all or some of their money back. There are some dodgy things out there, though, which is why people are cynical. There's, in my view, the crypto tracing, people often pay for crypto tracing services. It's pretty pointless. Like, it's a real service, as in they can trace your crypto to a wallet, but for 99% of people, it's completely pointless. Like, you just get a wallet name, or what are you going to do with that? Like, you'll know that your money's gone to Ukraine or Russia or something like that, but it's like, what are you going to do? You're not going to get it back. So we quite often see the people that operate in our space. So we don't do that. But there's people who not operate in our space that, someone will come, they've lost money to a cryptocurrency scam, and they'll say, oh, well, why don't you pay a few grand and we can trace your crypto for you as well?
What are you going to do?
And it's a pretty pointless service. I think it's pretty immoral to do that. So I get why people are cynical about whether there's something they can actually do, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of incorrect information, and also a lot of people preying on people that have already lost money to a scam.
Right. So, Stu, you and your co-founders, you put $5,000 in each, you bootstrap the business. Over the last 4 years, you've recovered circa 100 million?
Should be over 100 million very soon. Yeah.
That's
almost
incredible.
100 million, yeah.
Absolutely incredible. I can imagine those early days when you were living on air. Must have been really tough. How did you get your first customer? How did you get your customers? And what did it feel like when you got your first customer?
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say we didn't know much about marketing as a founding team.
Yeah.
We managed to scramble together but actually we got banned from Google ads because we didn't know what we were doing. So we were using Bing, which is a bit smaller. And we'd linked everything up so that when a lead came through, it would notify us in Slack. So every time a lead came through, it would just be like, oh my God, we get so excited. And, it was a mixed bag, because sometimes leads were just not really real. It was misunderstanding, or people wouldn't answer. But like the first one, I remember the first case. Obviously, can't say their name.
Yeah.
But it was got on the phone to them. It took a while for people to trust us, because bear in mind, people have just been scammed. This whole thing about getting your money back did not exist. But there was also lots of people online trying to scam people who had already been scammed, pretending they could get their money back. So there's a big whole thing about trying to build up trust when you've got 0 reviews and no online presence. Other than you're just a website that at the time wasn't, in hindsight, wasn't great. So yeah, it was an amazing feeling, and
you must have been buzzing.
Yeah. And we put so much into those cases. We were pretty naive, because it was just a winner. We knew it was a winner from what we knew from the regulations. We knew that the case was a winner all day long. And we went to the bank. Well, we went to the bank and we were like, we're going to get our first revenue. We're going to get our first revenue. The bank didn't uphold it. And then we chased them again, being like, are you sure? Like, obviously this one needs to pay out. And then they said no again. We ended up writing to the CEO of the bank, like, about how wrong it was. And these customers were elderly, right? And it was really convincing scam. They'd done nothing wrong. Again, should have been reimbursed all day long under the relevant rules. And the bank still just said no. And we couldn't believe it. We were pretty deflated. And then we took it to the Financial Ombudsman Service. Eventually we won. The customer got all their money back. And funnily enough, I remember the first 4 cases we took on were all pretty big, and we won every single one, which was like, we don't win all our cases now. But we won all the initial cases, which was amazing. And obviously gave us a lot of confidence going forward.
And helped to develop a name in that sector.
Yeah.
And trust.
Yeah, we were obviously, please review us
Yeah.
when we got people's money back. Yeah. And explained how important it was.
And you boys must have been buzzing at this stage.
Yeah.
Those early days, tough times, winning cases, just what you needed, right? Put some wind in your sails.
Yeah. And we I think we realized very early on that the bank stage was more of a formality, because the banks just don't reimburse people.
So essentially you go to the bank, you follow process, but in reality,
you have to go to them first before you're allowed to go to the Ombudsman Service. Yeah. It has improved recently, but still,
And how long does a case typically, it could be a piece of string, but how long does a case typically take to resolve?
Again, it's got quicker. The Ombudsman Service has sped up their process. Generally, I'd say it's between 6 and 12 months.
Right.
But people, sometimes we can resolve a case in a few weeks, and sometimes we've got cases that have been dragging on for years as well. So
big case like the diamond fraud, that could take years, right?
Yeah, that one could take a long time. And some take a long time for no real reason at all. It's just the way it is. If the bank keeps appealing and there's a lot of back and forth, it can take a long time.
I guess like most co-founders, Stu, and founders, you looking for the next bright, shiny thing. What sort of business do you want Refundee to be?
I think we are the best at what we do. I want it to. At the moment, we're actually the second biggest. Our main competitor has a lot more funding than us. Right. But I think we're on track to be the biggest, certainly. And I want us to not only continue what we're doing, continue growing. I want to make sure that stuff improves for scam victims. So, there's a lot of pressure at the moment. There's a lot of lobbying going on from the banking sector on the government, who are, trying to target growth. And to be honest, the government's being given a lot of misinformation about this kind of thing. So what we want to do is make sure that people are aware of how important it is to not just the individual. It's devastating when someone's been scammed. If they can get all or some of their money back, it goes a long way to repairing that damage. Removing that kind of access to justice for people could be a big issue, which is kind of, something that's possible. But also the damage it does to the economy. Wherever we've actually traced the money, we see that it goes offshore. We trace money it literally goes to terrorist organizations, and to countries like North Korea, Russia, all these countries that are supposed to be sanctioned.
Yeah.
However, we're just seeing like millions and millions of pounds funneling through crypto
we're not
or whatever.
Getting the money back from those countries. The money is coming back essentially from UK banks.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a double hit.
Yeah. So banks some of these scams, like I look at them and it's so easy to stop. Like a lot of these scams, they're banking with the mainstream banks. We had a £5 million, sorry, this one is £5 million fraud that all the money was received through NatWest personal accounts. and they didn't seemingly stop it. I don't know how that much, and the references people were using were like investment and things like that. I just don't know how they allowed that to
Not
happen.
flagged. Yeah.
I don't know how that was allowed to happen. They need to be better at stopping fraud. If we would like to see just less fraud, and we'd like to see the banking sector be a bit more serious about stopping fraud rather than trying to stop being liable for fraud. Because at the moment their focus seems to be on how do we stop being liable,
rather than actually preventing it happening.
Yeah. And we would happily reduce our business if less people are being scammed. What we don't want to see is our business being reduced because people aren't able to get their money back because the regulations and rules are changing, or their access to justice. Yeah, exactly.
There is a thing about ethics in all of this, isn't there? I think what sort of business Refundee is and what your vision for it, but I suppose ethics over profit is always a real challenge, isn't it?
Being self-funded, like bootstraps, makes that a bit easier because you're not having to answer to anybody else. So you can run the business however you want. And that's been really useful for us. For us, we're not chasing mega profits, as much profit at all costs. So we charge a much lower fee. That's obviously a good thing for people that use us. We're much cheaper than anyone else, but unfortunately people don't tend to shop around if they've been scammed. Like, they tend to just go to whoever speaks to them first. But there's also situations in this area where you can, people are vulnerable, they've just been scammed, they just want to hand the problem to somebody else and don't want to have to think about it. So people are actually, to be honest with you, they're ripe for being taken advantage of.
Yeah, of course.
Even by legitimate companies that are going to do it for them.
You're vulnerable anyway, let alone. Yeah.
So we have a thing where we are very transparent about the whole process. We even tell people what their rights actually are, how the cases are fought. Some people decide to do it themselves. Most people still don't want to.
Yeah.
But one thing we also do is we push people to kind of speak to their banks first, especially, there's certain cases. I used to be on the phones when we first started, and there'd be someone that would call up and they'll tell me what's happened. They haven't even spoken to their bank yet. And I know that there's a 100% chance pretty much they're going to get refunded just by speaking to the bank themselves. They don't need a specialist in that case. So other organizations, unfortunately, would sign those people up and convince them that they, you don't approach the bank because you'll lose it. They'll send a letter to the bank and take their fee for it. It's really unethical because you're just taking a fee for nothing, just sending a letter in that situation. So we are very big on speak to your bank first. And we only force it if we think they've got a good chance, if it's completely pointless. There's certain banks that just literally have never paid anyone out. So we don't force them to do it in those situations. But that's a big thing, part of ethics as well. It's just really important to me and the co-founders as well. We always wanted to set up our own business and run it our own way. And again, being bootstrapped allows you to do that. And our staff see that as well. The type of people we've hired, again, they're not money-driven people, money at all costs, that kind of thing. They will hold us to account, the kind of people we've hired. If we change things, they want to feel like they're adding value, and they tend to be quite ethical people that want to be proud of what they do. And what is one of the best things about Refundee is that I feel like the staff are very proud of what they do. You can tell by the way that they love getting people's money back for them, which is really nice to see. And it just, I've worked at places before where the culture is wrong, and when people, I think particularly like people that are a bit younger now, they're more used to wanting to do something where they feel good about it, some kind of social good. So I think that's helped us a lot as well in terms of our recruitment and retention as well, and just keeping that culture.
How are you navigating culture with work from home? Because I know you're pretty nomadic as a business, aren't you? You and the co-founders are based in Foundries, but your team, I guess, will work from home.
I mean, it comes with pros and cons. We set up during COVID, so we just ended up accidentally being remote first. And the major pros are you can hire some amazing people, and they can work from wherever they like.
All UK based, or?
Pretty much, yeah. And we where the rules allow, people can work abroad and things like that as well. So as long as there's no issues with that short term kind of stuff, so people can use it to fit in with their lifestyle. But it means we get amazing hires. because if we were based in London, it's a lot more expensive. Office space is really expensive.
Sure.
The staff costs, people living costs are so high, things like that. So it's been great for that. There are some challenges around communication when you're a remote only company. It is the training side of things does take longer.
Yeah.
But
do you get together?
Yeah, we get together. Anyone could come to the Foundry whenever they want.
Yeah.
And we have quite a lot of people that just come in on day passes.
Great.
So when they're in London, they'll come, or they come every now and again.
But they prefer to come to this one with a swimming pool and
yeah.
Sorry, Walthamstow.
Yeah,
you got a swimming pool in Walthamstow too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
To be fair,
people were like amazed because we actually before Foundry we used we actually jumped around quite a few offices.
Right.
And we really struggled to be honest. We really didn't find anything that was great. There was one we did find that was really great. Apart from the Wi-Fi wasn't good.
Oh my goodness.
Which is like quite fundamental.
I'm not going to say anything because things go wrong sometimes.
But yeah, Foundry's been it's been.
Well, I'm glad that Foundry adds value. And continues to add value. And it's so nice to see when I walk into Wandsworth to see you here, a familiar face from Walthamstow, and hear that we as a business are aligned. I like to think we're an ethical business. Culture is really important to me. Within the Foundry team, but when it comes to the community, our members, it's equally as important. And I always say this: I genuinely believe that cultivating community directly correlates to commercial performance. So, from a cold, hard numbers perspective, the stronger the community is in our locations, the stronger the locations perform. How do our listeners get in touch with you personally?
I don't have much social media, so they can add me on LinkedIn.
And Refundee, where's the best place to get in touch with you guys?
Best thing to do is just go on our website. Right. They can email us on inquiries@refundee.com, or if it's about an actual claim, it's just obvious. Go onto our website, which is www.refundee.com, and there's a start your claim form, and it's kind of self-explanatory. You just fill that in.
If anyone wants to chat, they can get hold of you on LinkedIn, presumably.
Yeah.
And you're Stuart McFadden on LinkedIn, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm really impressed by your story, and not only stepping out from mainstream, good job. I admire that risk in anyone that does that is a huge risk, and it's a curse being an entrepreneur. You know that has its pros and its cons. Yeah. There's a lot more cons generally. On a daily basis, but to tackle the big banks, to tackle this problem, and to keep your North Star, your ethical North Star, results for your customers over profits, is hugely admirable. So well done. It's amazing, absolutely, and what a great story. And it's great to see you on the telly on Panorama, and we all look forward to following your story as you grow Refundee.
Yeah, thank you very much.